A strategic vision on confronting the Iranian regime, the necessity of absolute deterrence, and a shift in global policy. First, the fundamental nature of the Iranian regime, a regime that knows no covenants. The foundational principle from which any international policy toward Iran must start is that this regime cannot be trusted. Historically, Tehran has proven that signature on agreements, no matter how ideal they may seem to the West, is nothing more than a tactical maneuver to gain time, a warrior's rest. The dilemma of trust and political fluctuation. Even if Iran adhered to some clauses during a firm American administration, such as the Trump administration, who can guarantee this commitment will continue if a Democratic administration arrives, adopting a policy of appeasement? This fluctuation in the American stance provides Iran with a loophole to infiltrate and achieve its long-term goals. Childish behavior in ideological garb. The leaders of the Iranian regime are characterized by a mentality that combines extreme selfishness with blind ideology, a behavior very similar to the impulsiveness and lack of consequence assessment found in children, but far more dangerous. They lack integrity and place no value on mutual respect between nations, international law, or even the law of the sea that regulates global trade. Second, the twinship between the Mullahs regime and terrorist organizations, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. There is no fundamental difference between the Iranian regime and organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They all drink from the same well of ignorance and ideological stubbornness. Shared intellectual roots. It is a shocking historical fact that the deceased Khomeini translated the books of Sayyid Qutb and Hassan al-Banna, the very books that formed the intellectual nucleus of the Muslim Brotherhood from which Al-Qaeda and ISIS later emerged. Unity of fate in treatment. Since the premises are the same, the method of treatment must be the same. Iran should not be treated as a normal state, but as a terrorist entity that must be confronted with the same firmness used to defeat the so-called caliphate of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Third, criticism of the Democratic Party's policy, turning a blind eye to imminent danger. The Democratic Party bears a heavy responsibility for the current situation. Instead of criticizing their political opponents, they must review their own policies, which have been characterized by weakness toward Tehran for decades. Indirect financing of terrorism. The policy of transferring funds and unfreezing Iranian assets pursued by democratic administrations is nothing less than explicit support for terrorism. These funds did not go toward the welfare of the Iranian people, they were pumped into the arsenal of missiles and drones. Results of ignorance of reality. This political ignorance has enabled Iran to possess thousands of advanced missiles that it now uses to support Russia in its international conflicts and to expand deep into the Arab world.
Fourth, the catastrophic scenario. What happens if Iran is left unchallenged? If the policy of closing one's eyes and wearing the black blindfold practiced by the Democrats continues, the world will wake up to a bitter reality. The nuclear and missile monster. Iran now possesses uranium enriched to 60%, which is a very short step away from producing a nuclear weapon. With its possession of long-range missiles that may soon reach Europe and then the heart of America, it will become capable of blackmailing the entire world with nuclear bombs carried by terrorists who will not hesitate to do anything. Loss of American geopolitical influence. The certain scenario is the complete expulsion of the United States from the Middle East, to be replaced by the Iranian-Russian-Chinese alliance. This means America's transformation from a global superpower into a mere isolated regional power, and the loss of its most important allies, who will be forced to adapt to reality and shift towards the stronger regional powers. Strangling waterways. Iran and its followers will control all vital straits, putting the global economy at the mercy of Iranian blackmail. Fifth, strategic solutions and ultimate goals. One cannot settle for partial solutions with a regime that views negotiation as a mere maneuver. The coming strategy must be based on two levels. 1. The ultimate strategic goal: toppling the Mullahs regime. The goal must be to get rid of this regime entirely. The survival of any part of it means an inevitable return to nuclear and missile programs as soon as the pressure subsides. Stripping nuclear capabilities, seizing all quantities of enriched uranium, either through the fall of the regime or by forcing the regime to hand it over voluntarily under irresistible military pressure. 2. Intermediate goals: dismantling power, weakening the regime economically and politically by all possible means, liberating the Strait of Hormuz, re-establishing international control over the strait and ensuring it remains open to global trade away from Iranian thuggery, targeting hardline heads, directing precision strikes at the hardline leaders of the regime to shake the structure of governance, destroying military infrastructure, launching a comprehensive air campaign targeting nuclear plants, ballistic missile platforms, drone factories, naval bases, fast boats, and all factories supporting the military effort. Sixth, the executive roadmap: practical solutions. To achieve these goals, the following paths must be followed: continuous pressure, continuing the comprehensive blockade and intensifying sanctions to the maximum degree; offensive military positioning, installing artillery and giant missile batteries on the western side of the Arabian Gulf so that Iranian sites on the eastern side are within direct and easy range; international alliance and ground action, forming an international alliance to liberate the Strait of Hormuz. It is proposed that alliance forces enter through the Pakistani border to bypass and secure the strait, providing intensive air cover, while avoiding the participation of any American ground forces to prevent political sensitivities within the United States. The role of the Gulf states: unity of fate. The Gulf states represent the fundamental pillar in this confrontation, and they bear historical responsibilities. Field participation, active engagement in international alliance forces to liberate the Strait of Hormuz on the ground. Policy of direct deterrence. The policy of silence towards provocations must end. Any Iranian attack must be met with an immediate and identical response at the sources of fire. Defensive fortification, intensifying investment in advanced air defenses to counter the threat of drones and missiles. Gulf unity, overcoming small internal differences immediately. The Iranian aggression is an existential threat that does not distinguish between one country and another. Solidarity is the only way to ensure the prosperity of the region and the safety of its lands, economy, and future. Conclusion: dealing with Iran as a normal state is an illusion that feeds terrorism. The world, led by a firm administration and close Gulf cooperation, faces two choices: either a comprehensive confrontation to dismantle this danger now, or waiting for a nuclear and terrorist disaster that will change the face of history forever. The time of stalling has ended, and the solution begins with recognizing this regime is ISIS in the garb of a state, and there is no cure for it but eradication.